Hi everyone, I'm Coach Charlene and I coach both the IELTS and the OET. So the IELTS stands for the International English Language Testing System, while the OET is the Occupational English Test. Both of these examinations are English tests that are required whenever you want to migrate, work, or study in English speaking countries, namely the United States of America, the United Kingdom, Ireland, Canada, Australia, or New Zealand, in which the primary requirement in order for you to be granted for a visa application is to present a proof that you can communicate well, okay, with the use of the English language. So basically, the IELTS has two types of modules. So you have the academic module and the general training module. So when you say academic, it's usually the IELTS version that is intended for nurses or for those who will be applying for a professional working visa, for a student visa also. So you will be required to file for an academic version of the IELTS exam. Whereas for those who are migrating or who will be applying for skilled working visa, then the general training module of the examination is the one that will be required from you. Now, there are four subjects that you have to sit throughout an IELTS examination, and you need to go through your listening, reading, writing, and speaking subtests. There is actually no pass or fail type of grade when it comes to the IELTS because it just varies depending on what's going to be required from you. So generally, most of my students, or since most of my students are nurses, the minimum requirement for their band score would be between 6.5 to 7.0. So that's the minimum, depending on the country that they will be going to. So for example, if they want to work as a nurse in the United States, most likely they need to target an overall band score of 6.5. While if they are going to go to the United Kingdom, they need to target an overall band score of at least 7.0 to prove that they are good users of the English language. When it comes to the IELTS examination, what's tricky about it is that you don't know what's going to be asked in the actual test. So you really need to prepare for a lot of things, especially for speaking, because that's the usual difficulty that students are encountering. They're having difficulties when it comes to maintaining their fluency, the manner of how they respond and elaborate the answers that they want to express. Usually, there's also lack of confidence. That's why a lot of students are having difficulties in acing the exam or targeting the seven for speaking. But again, generally, it requires practice. It takes constant practice for people to come up with, or to be able to reach their target band scores. Okay, so some of the most common questions that I'm asked by students at the beginning of, the coaching session or during inquiry is that they're confused whether they need to take the IELTS or the OET. I always tell them it varies depending on which country are they targeting. So for example, if they're going to the United Kingdom, both OET and IELTS are accepted if they want to file for their application for the NMC or the Nurse Midwife Council of the United Kingdom. Both IELTS and OET are acceptable. It's just that the level of difficulty may vary because IELTS is more random when it comes to the questions that will be given to candidates. The questions for speaking, especially, may range from people in society, technology, education, anything under the sun may be asked, your preferences. Whereas if you're going to be taking the OET, the questions are usually related to whatever your profession is. So if you're a nurse, we can expect that for the speaking subtest, role play activities when it comes to having a therapeutic communication between a nurse and a patient is supposed to be maintained throughout the test. So depending again on your capacity to communicate more effectively. That's, I think, one of the number one considerations that students need to have when it comes to applying for their test. Generally, IELTS is not cheap. Okay, it usually costs between 11 to 12,000 pesos, while the OET I think is between 21 to 22,000 pesos. So I'll be talking more about OET in other videos. For today, IELTS is actually the more popular choice of students who are going to go to the United States. Present for the IELTS, most of my students are taking the exam because they want to push their American dreams. So most of them have already successfully passed their NCLEX. Okay, so the finishing requirement for their visa application would just be ensuring that they will be getting a minimum of 7.0 for speaking and making sure that their overall band score for the IELTS test, once your listening, reading, writing, and speaking or average, would be equivalent to 6.5. Most of them are having difficulty, especially those who are not really used to communicating in English, in which fluency and spontaneity are the primary things that will be graded when it comes to being assessed or evaluated for your IELTS examination to prove that you are really a good user of the English language. Now remember, if you want to target a 7.0, it's all right to make mistakes in the actual test when it comes to the speaking. The more important thing is that you're able to understand what the complexities of the questions are. You're able to express yourself and you are clearly understood by your examiner. That's it.